Hello, everyone, and welcome. Find a comfortable spot, maybe grab a cup of coffee, and settle in. Before we begin today's story, if you enjoy what you hear, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us bring more stories like this to you. And hey, drop a comment down below and let me know where in the world you're listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. All right, the story I'm about to share, well, it's my own. It's about a day that started with a birthday cake and ended with flashing police lights. It's about how the most painful words I ever heard from my own son ultimately set me free. My name is Arnold, and this is the story of how I finally disappeared from my son's life. Just like he asked. It all started on a perfect April evening, the kind of evening that feels like it was made for celebrating. The air was warm, carrying that delicious smell of barbecue from the backyard. I was standing just inside my kitchen, balancing this big, beautiful chocolate cake in one hand. I'd made it from scratch, his favorite. In the drawer, 28 candles were waiting. He was turning 28, my son, Leo. Under my other arm, I had his gift, all wrapped up. It was a vintage watch. Not just any watch, though. It was my father's. His grandfather's. Leo had seen it in an antique shop months ago and just stared at it, saying how they just don't make things with that kind of class anymore. Finding it, buying it, it felt important. A piece of our family history to pass on to him. Through the sliding glass door, I could hear the party in full swing. Laughter, music from the new sound system I'd set up for him, the clinking of beer bottles. It was everything a 28th birthday party should be. I'd even hired a catering service to handle appetizers so I could focus on the main event, the burgers, and of course, the cake. I just wanted everything to be perfect for him. I paused at the door, taking a moment to listen, not wanting to interrupt. I saw Leo standing by the grill with his two best friends, Mike and Jason. His girlfriend, Samantha, was sitting on a patio chair, glued to her phone as usual. Then, Mike's voice cut through the music. "Man, your dad really went all out for this party, Leo." He gestured around the yard. "New sound system, all this premium beer, this is top-shelf stuff." I smiled to myself, feeling a little swell of fatherly pride. And then I heard Leo's reply. He took a long drink from his beer and said, "Yeah, well, he's trying to buy my affection. Same as always. Thinks his money can fix everything." I froze. The cake in my hand suddenly felt like a block of lead. The gift under my arm felt 10 times heavier. My smile just evaporated. Jason, trying to be a good friend, I guess, chimed in, "Hey, at least he cares, man. My old man hasn't even called me in 6 months." Leo let out this short, bitter laugh. A laugh with no warmth, no joy in it. "Trust me," he said. "You're better off. Arnold is always breathing down my neck. Get a job, Leo. Time to move out, Leo. You need to take some responsibility, Leo." It's like a broken record. He doesn't get how tough the economy is right now. My fingers tightened on the edge of the cake plate. My knuckles were white. Through the glass, I watched my son, my only child, gestured dismissively with his beer bottle. "Honestly, guys," he said, his voice loud enough for the whole group to hear, "you want to know what the best gift he could give me would be? The best gift for me would be if the old man finally disappeared from my life forever. I am so tired of his lectures and his constant need to control everything." The words hit me like a physical punch to the gut. I stumbled back a step, catching myself on the doorframe. Disappeared forever. 28 years. 28 years of birthday parties, of scraped knees, of teaching him to ride a bike, of helping with homework I barely understood, of paying for college. All of it, every sacrifice, every worry, every moment of pride, it all came crashing down into that one single, cruel sentence. His friends, of course, just egged him on. Dude's probably got your whole life planned out on some spreadsheet, right? Jason snorted. That's what engineers do. Exactly, Leo agreed, turning toward the house. I shrank back into the shadows of the kitchen, pressing myself against the wall, my heart hammering against my ribs. Sometimes I just wish he would, find somewhere else to be. Permanently. The gift, my father's watch, slipped from under my arm. It landed with a soft thud on the doormat. I barely caught it before my legs gave out. This heirloom, this symbol of family and legacy, it suddenly felt cheap, worthless. You could always move out, Samantha called from her chair, without even looking up at her phone. With what money? He shot back. He controls the purse strings. He loves it. Makes him feel powerful, I guess. But hey, he added with a smirk I could hear in his voice, at least the free rent's decent. The whole group erupted in laughter, and I just stood there, a 62-year-old man holding a birthday cake for a son who wished I was gone. The candles in the drawer suddenly seemed like a joke. What was there to celebrate? My hands started to shake, and the cake wobbled. Memories, they just flooded in. The time he introduced me at his college graduation party as the guy who pays for everything. The Christmas morning, when he barely glanced up from his new phone while opening the gifts I'd spent weeks picking out. Had I been this blind? Had I been so desperate for his love that I ignored all the signs, all the little cuts that had been leading to this one giant wound?
I looked through the glass again. He was flipping burgers on the grill I bought, using the tongs I bought, on the patio of the house I paid for. He was the king of his little castle, enjoying a party funded by the man he wished would just vanish. And my chest tightened with something that went beyond just hurt. It was colder than that. It was calculating. He wanted me gone. He wished I would disappear. I looked at the cake in my hands, then back at my son laughing with his friends. And in that moment, something inside me, something that had been soft and patient for 28 years, finally hardened into steel. All right, I thought. You want me to disappear? Happy birthday, son. Wish granted, but we're going to do this my way. I set the cake down on the counter and walked past the birthday decorations I'd hung that morning. I had some phone calls to make. I spent about 10 minutes in my study, the party a distant, muffled sound. I wasn't just stewing in my anger anymore. My mind, the engineer's mind that Leo and his friends had mocked, was working. It was processing data, analyzing a problem, and formulating a solution. The problem wasn't just my son's ingratitude. The problem was the entire system I had built around him. A system that enabled his disrespect, that rewarded his entitlement. The system was broken. It was time for a complete overhaul. When I walked back out into the yard, I wasn't carrying the cake or the gift. I wasn't wearing a forced smile. I was just a father who had heard the truth. I walked right up to their little circle by the grill. Leo, I said. My voice was calm, but it cut through their laughter like a knife. Can we talk? In private. He turned, and he had this look of casual annoyance on his face. The same look he'd got when I'd asked him to take out the trash or mow the lawn. Dad, come on, we're having a party. We need to talk. Now. He sighed, a big dramatic show for his friends. Look, Dad, whatever you think you overheard, it's probably true, okay? You're always interfering, you're always trying to run my life, and frankly, everyone here knows it. The sheer audacity of it, saying that out loud in front of his friends, it stunned me for a second. There was no shame, no backtracking, just pure, unadulterated arrogance. Interfering? I asked, my voice still steady. By providing you a roof over your head? Food in the refrigerator? A car to drive? Nobody asked you to, he shot back, his voice rising. His friends, Mike and Jason, were nodding along like he was spouting some profound wisdom. Mike even stepped a little closer, putting his hand on Leo's shoulder. He's got a point, Mr. Davis. I mean, parents choose to have kids, right? It's kind of on you. The casual cruelty of it. From a boy I'd known since he was in diapers, it was breathtaking. I looked around my backyard. My property. Paid for by my sweat and my long hours at the office, and I saw a jury of his peers, all ready to convict me of the crime of being a responsible father. So when you said you wished I'd disappear forever, you meant that. For the first time, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He didn't think I'd heard the exact words, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by that defensive anger. Yeah, I meant it. You hover, you lecture, you make everything about your expectations for me. Maybe if you got your own life instead of trying to control mine, we'd both be a lot happier. My life? And I almost laughed. This is my life. My house, my food, the very beer in your hand is from my life. He just smirked. That cold, dismissive smirk. Yeah, and when you finally kick the bucket, I'll probably miss the free rent for about 5 minutes. Then I'll figure it out. Samantha, from her throne on the patio chair, giggled. Leo, you're awful. But she said it like a compliment, like his cruelty was some charming personality quirk. That was it. That was the moment the hurt finally finished its transformation. It wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Cold, hard, crystal clarity. I was looking at a 28-year-old stranger who happened to share my DNA, a parasite who was celebrating his existence by mocking his host. I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked away from the circle of smirking faces. I heard Leo's laughter follow me as I headed back toward the house. He thought he'd won. He thought he'd put the old man in his place once again. He had no idea what he had just unleashed. He wanted me gone? Fine. But he was about to learn that when I go, everything I provide goes with me. I walked straight past the kitchen, past the abandoned cake, and went to the small table where the DJ equipment was set up. I picked up the wireless microphone. I found the master volume for the speakers and turned the music completely off. The sudden silence was jarring. Every conversation in the backyard stopped. Every head turned towards me. I raised the microphone. My voice, amplified, boomed across the yard. It was steady, it was emotionless, it was final. Attention everyone. The party is over. I am asking every single one of you to please leave my property immediately. You could have heard a pin drop. People just stared, beer bottles halfway to their lips. Confusion rippled through the crowd. Then Leo stepped forward, his face red with a mixture of embarrassment and rage. Nobody's going anywhere, he shouted, not at me, but at the guests. This is my party. You're all welcome to stay. Mike backed him up instantly. Yeah, Robert, don't be a jerk. It's the kid's birthday. I kept my eyes on the crowd, my voice calm and clear through the microphone. This is my property. I am the legal owner, and I am revoking my permission for you to be here. Anyone who remains on this property is trespassing. A few people started shifting uncomfortably. The word trespassing has a certain weight to it. But Leo wasn't backing down. Dad, put the microphone down and stop embarrassing yourself. You're acting like a crazy person. This is not your property, Leo, I said into the mic, letting the words hang in the air. I own this house. I pay the mortgage. I pay the utilities. I pay the taxes. You are a guest here, just like everyone else, and I am asking you all to leave. So what? He yelled. You've been supporting me my whole life. That's what parents do. You can't just kick everyone out because you're having a little temper tantrum. Actually, I said, my voice dangerously calm, I can. You have 5 minutes to vacate the premises voluntarily.
After that, I will be calling the police, and they will remove you." I set the microphone down on the table. The silence was thick with tension. I could see the guests looking at each other, then at Leo, then at me. They were trying to figure out if I was bluffing. "Dad, you can't do this!" Leo's voice was different now. There was a hint of panic in it. "These are my friends!" I paused at the back door and looked back at him, over the crowd of people. "You wanted me gone from your life, Leo?" I said, my voice carrying easily in the quiet. "This is what that looks like. When I'm gone, my house, my money, and my hospitality are gone with me." And I walked inside, closed the door, walked over to the kitchen phone on the wall, and dialed 911. It took about 20 minutes for the red and blue lights to sweep across the backyard. The arrival of 2 uniformed police officers had a sobering effect that no amount of lecturing from me ever could. The party atmosphere vanished instantly. "Who's the homeowner?" The senior officer, a calm man named Miller, asked as he walked onto the patio. "I am," I said, stepping forward from the kitchen door. I had my driver's license and a recent property tax bill ready in my hand. "Officer, I asked these individuals to leave my property, and they have refused." Officer Miller nodded, taking the documents and glancing at them. His partner, a younger female officer, addressed the remaining guests. "Folks, the property owner has asked you to leave. If you don't depart immediately, you will be trespassing." That was the magic word. About half of the remaining guests started grabbing their things and heading for the side gate, muttering apologies. They wanted no part of this. But Leo's core group, Mike, Jason, and Samantha, they stayed put, defiant, flanking Leo like he was some kind of revolutionary leader. "Officer, this is ridiculous," Leo said, trying to sound reasonable. "It's my birthday party. My dad is just being vindictive." Officer Miller wasn't impressed. "Son, a family dispute doesn't change property law. Your father owns the house. He wants you to leave. You need to leave." Leo crossed his arms. The arrogance was back, but it was brittle now. "I live here," he declared. "This is my home too. You can't kick me out of my own home." And that was the moment everything escalated. Officer Miller's patience, which had been considerable, visibly ran out. "Sir, you live here by his permission. He is the owner. He is revoking that permission. This is your final opportunity to leave voluntarily." "I'm not going anywhere," he spat. "Actually, you are," the other officer said, moving to his side. It all happened so fast. Leo tried to argue again, and Officer Miller just said, "Turn around and place your hands behind your back." The color drained from Leo's face. "Are you serious? You're actually arresting me?" The click of the handcuffs closing around his wrists was one of the loudest sounds I'd ever heard. It echoed across the silent patio. Mike and Jason looked on, stunned into silence. Samantha let out a little gasp. As they led him away, Leo twisted around to look at me. The look in his eyes, it was pure hatred. "I will never forgive you for this," he screamed. "You think you won? You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Hours before, those words would have shattered me. But now, they just confirmed I had done the right thing. A son who could feel that much venom for a father who was finally setting a boundary was a son who desperately needed to learn what real life was. "We'll see," I said quietly, to no one in particular. They put him in the back of the patrol car. I watched as it drove away, taking my 28-year-old son to spend his birthday night in a jail cell. The party was over. My backyard was quiet. It was mine again. And in that quiet, the real work was just beginning. A phone call to the county clerk the next morning confirmed it. 14 days, 2 weeks for criminal trespassing and disorderly conduct. His release was scheduled for April 29th at 9 a.m. 2 weeks. It was the perfect amount of time. That first morning, the silence in the house was profound. No loud music from his room, no trail of dirty dishes, no demands. It was peaceful. And in that peace, I began to work. I pulled out bank statements, utility bills, tax records. I was an engineer, after all. I dealt in beta. I calculated the true cost of Leo's free rent, the equivalent rent in our neighborhood, the utilities, the food, the car insurance, the cell phone bill, the constant emergencies that required a few $100s here and there. It came out to over $50,000 a year for 5 years straight, since he dropped out of college. $250,000. That's what it had cost me to finance my own disrespect. I called a real estate agent that same day, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sarah. I need to sell, and I need to sell fast, I told her in her office. What's the timeline? She asked, all business. The house needs to be sold and closed in less than 2 weeks. She raised her eyebrow. That's an aggressive timeline, Mr. Davis. May I ask why the urgency?
Personal reasons, I said. Let's just say I'm ready for a major life change. I'll offer you a significant bonus if you can make it happen. Money talks. Sarah's eyes lit up. Mr. Davis, you have my complete attention. The next few days were a blur. Staging the house, photographs, listing. Sarah was a miracle worker. My home, meticulously maintained over the years, showed beautifully. The listing went live on a Thursday. We had an open house scheduled for Saturday and Sunday. By Sunday evening, we had 3 cash offers, all over the asking price. While all this was happening, I was making other plans, researching small, quiet towns in states I'd never even visited, places where my nest egg could buy me a comfortable life. Arizona, North Carolina, places with no connection to my old life. Places where Leo would never think to look for the father he wished would disappear. His threat during the arrest, "You just made the biggest decision of your life," kept replaying in my mind. It wasn't a son's cry of pain, it was a manipulator's threat. It was the sound of someone who has lost control and is promising retaliation. And it erased any lingering doubt I might have had. The sale was finalized. The closing date was set for April 28th, 1 day before Leo's release. I spent the last week packing. Not the whole house, just 1 suitcase for me. The rest, the furniture, the memories, the life I had built, would go with the house. I hired movers to take my father's desk and a few boxes of personal keepsakes to a storage unit. The day of the closing, I signed the papers. The house was no longer mine. I walked through the empty rooms one last time. It wasn't sad. It felt light. I drove to the house of my next-door neighbor, Frank, a good man I'd known for years. I had one last favor to ask. "Frank, can I stay in your guest room for a night? I'm between places." "Of course, Arnold," he said, no questions asked. His guest room had a perfect, clear view of the front of my old house. The next morning, April 29th, I sat by Frank's window with a cup of coffee. At 9:25 a.m., a taxi pulled up to the curb. Leo got out. He was wearing the same clothes he'd been arrested in. He looked tired and angry. He swaggered up the walkway, pulling a set of keys from his pocket, my old keys. He walked with the absolute confidence of a man returning to his castle. He didn't notice the new family car in the driveway. He didn't notice the strange welcome mat. He put his key in the lock. Of course, it didn't turn. The locks had been changed. He jiggled it, his confident swagger turning to frustrated confusion. He knocked on the door hard. A moment later, the door opened. A man I'd never met. Mr. Garcia, the new owner. He stood there. "Can I help you?" he asked, politely. "Who the hell are you? What are you doing in my house?" "I'm sorry, son, but this is our house now. We bought it." I watched Leo's face, the arrogance, the anger.
It all just melted away, replaced with a look of sheer, uncomprehending shock. That's impossible. This is my father's house. He lives here. Just then, Mrs. Garcia came to the door. "Are you Leo?" she asked gently. Leo just nodded, speechless. "Your father, he left this for you." She handed him a plain, white envelope. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. This was it, the final lesson. Leo tore it open. His eyes scanned the single sheet of paper inside. I knew the words by heart. I had written them over and over. "Leo, you said the best gift I could give you was to disappear from my life forever. Wish granted. The house is sold. I'm traveling and will be unreachable. You're 28 years old. You now have the complete independence you always said you wanted. Good luck. Arnold." I watched his face as he read it, and then read it again. The color drained from his skin. His whole body seemed to sag like the strings holding him up had been cut. The tough guy, the entitled prince, he just crumbled. "No," he whispered to no one. "No, he can't do that." He looked up at the house, his house, now filled with a stranger's life. He looked down the street as if expecting me to just appear and tell him it was all some horrible joke. He sank down onto the curb, the letter trembling in his hand. And for the first time since he was a small boy, I saw my son cry. Not angry, frustrated tears, but the silent, racking sobs of someone who has truly lost everything and finally understands it's their own damn fault. I watched for a long time. Then I stood up from the window, picked up my single suitcase, and walked quietly out of Frank's house. I got in my car and drove away without looking back. I headed west, towards the ocean. I didn't have a destination, and for the first time in my life, that felt exhilarating. The money from the house was in my bank account. I was 62 years old, and I was completely, utterly free. Leo got his wish. I disappeared. He had his independence. He would have to learn about rent, about bills, about jobs, about consequences. Maybe that lesson would save him. Maybe it wouldn't. But it was no longer my lesson to teach. My job as his provider was over. And me, I found a small town on the coast. I have a little house that's all mine, just a short walk from the beach. I learned that I actually like my own company. I learned that my value as a person isn't tied to what I can provide for someone else. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is to let go, completely. The hurt is still there sometimes, a dull ache like an old injury. But it's not the defining feature of my life anymore. Freedom is, peace is, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Thank you all for listening to my story. It's a hard one to tell, but I think it's an important one. If you have a thought you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Until next time, be well.